Did you prep for the right episode?
What makes a great comedy? We know what you're thinking. Back for another slice of potato pie.
I don't know what you were going to say. Slice of heaven.
Yeah, a little slice of heaven it is. This is Rotten Potatoes, your source for film analysis, pop culture relevance, and you get to spend some time with father and son and hopefully have a good time. I'm Dr. Paul.
I'm Diet Dr. Paul.
And we are warming up for Halloween.
The children of the night. What sweet music they make.
Consider this an appetizer.
An amuse-bouche.
Yes.
What a f***ing bozo.
I'm surprised I pronounced that right.
You did it right. You go there. You go using that education.
I use my
of yours.
book learning.
Yeah. Think about this as the chessboard for what is coming up in October, where we will give you every single day a horror movie that we are all going to watch together, all of us. And it will be a communal experience. So today's episode, we're going to talk about what?
What makes a perfect horror film? Which, are there perfect horror films?
And by horror means Horror.
Not horror films.
Debbie Does Dallas has all the answers.
Yes. Yes, they are perfect horror films. We don't look at horror films the same way we look at other movies.
No.
Like
We almost
dramas.
put handicap them.
Yeah, we do.
like,
Genre films.
You're good for a horror movie.
Yes.
Oh, go run and play now.
Yes. But I think there's some validity to that because I think we do some crazy things and some, I think we make some bad horror movies. I think if you just randomly went to a horror movie, I would say more often than not, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
You know, there are fewer great horror movies than there are great dramas or westerns or war films or something like that.
And that's because I think a bad horror film can still be effective to some people. People that don't watch a lot of movies can be affected by a really, really shitty horror movie. Excuse my language. But for instance, Sinister, that's a bad movie.
Yes.
People love that movie.
Oh, we go back and watch our Sinister episode and tell us we're wrong.
It's terrible. It's a terrible movie. But yeah, it just I think people were just, as long as it scared them a little bit, then they can just go away and take that it was good. But I don't think that's the case.
Well, today I'm going to tell you, and he's going to tell you his top 7 things that make a perfect horror movie. And in my mind, if all 7 of the things that are on my list, if that was the roadmap for horror, then every single horror movie that came out would get nominated for Best Picture. You know, I love the genre. I mean, we love the genre, but you got to wade through a whole lot of crap to get to the diamonds kind of stuff. So I'm going to start us off, and I don't know what you're going to say, and you don't know what I'm going to say, but for my number 7 is what makes a good horror movie is it knows what it is. It sets out to do what it is. And the example I'm going to use is there are sort of kill tally movies that are out there that it's essentially just lining up kill after kill after kill. We see a lot of those, right? But if you know that that's what you are about, one death after another, you know, then I think of things like In a Violent Nature, which we just saw, or
You can lean into it.
Final Destination, slasher films, but do
Saw.
it with wit and intelligence and creativity. You know, we've seen the killer before in a lot of, you know, we had Groundhog Day and we had Valentine's Day. So you've got a killer, but it knows what it is, but it just tries to do that in a way that's really clever and showing the viewer something they've never seen before.
Agree. Number 7. My number 7 is an outside the box premise or a new way to tell an old story, a la Memento. I mean, the more like less cut and dry you get with it, I think the more opportunity you have to get something that's better. So I think if you just show up to a random slasher movie or a random zombie movie, the odds are that it's probably going to be less effective or not as good as if you were to go see something that was a little bit more, I don't know, an out there or outside the box idea. I don't want to come up with a weird one. Or no one will save you. The woman who the aliens are taking over Earth and she's deaf. And so she's trying to portray, it's like a different way to do an alien invasion story that sort of makes it different. So I think if you can add some layers to that, you have a better chance of like you're saying, of walking into a random horror movie. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? You have a better chance of it being good if it's a different premise.
Are you trying to say it just needs to be surprising?
Well, not necessarily surprising. I just don't, the more run of the mill it is, the more opportunity you have that it's going to be bad. Right? If you just randomly, talking about random selection, I random pick a slasher, or randomly pick a zombie, or randomly pick a werewolf movie, more of a chance that it's going to be bad than have something that's a little bit more unique.
Don't just rehash.
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right. Good. I mean, I can see that. I can sort of see that permeating other items on my list.
Well, you kind of touched on it already a little bit.
Mm-hmm. My number 6 is that, and I think it goes back to what you were saying, that there are people out there that will just watch horror movies that they really don't care about all of the kind of things we're talking about. I don't want just kills for kill's sake or gore for gore's sake. I also, you have to care about the characters in
Daily Double. You have to care about the characters.
Yes.
Otherwise their deaths are meaningless.
Yes. Now, and sometimes we've seen in the In a Violent Place where they were really more cardboard cutouts. But it knew what it was trying to be.
Yeah, so it saved a little bit of that effectiveness, but it still hurt it that we didn't care about the characters.
Yes, but you need some kind of a level of emotional involvement in the story, and then that's where fear comes from. If you care about somebody, it's like, oh no, you're not going to kill him, are you? Mm-hmm. So
it's like a Game of Thrones. It's what people love about that show is it's just so you never know what's going to happen. You can't get attached to characters.
Yeah.
Usually it's like the more someone's on screen, the less likely they are to die, but in horror, that's not the same.
Okay. I'm thinking that we're going to have a whole lot more overlap. Maybe not using the same words, but because I think we tend to like the same horror films for the same reasons. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You keep going. You're on number 5 because that was a Daily Double, my boy.
Oh, I need some humor. And I think there's a purpose for humor in horror films because it gives you a chance to catch your breath a little bit. And it's like, whew, all right, as opposed to you can only take tension so long until you just it just becomes unbearable. I'm thinking of the film that we watched that had the dog in it, and I can't remember.
When Evil Lurks.
Yes, kind of stuff. It was perfect, kind of like, okay. Well,
the coffee table has a dog scene in it too.
It does, and it does, and I don't remember laughing about it, but it is. But no, yeah. I just think that do that, and I think the best horror films do have some level of humor in it.
Well, this is kind of another Daily Double, but I think I just added a little bit more to it. So I talk about the 3 tenets necessary for horror films: comedy, you need scary, and you need gory. So I think the best horror films or perfect horror films have a good mixture of all 3. You can't just be just gore or else it gets tiring. It can't just be just tense or else it gets tiring. It can't just be just comedy or else it's not scary or anything. So you have to have that mix. It's the perfect bite, right? It's like chocolate covered pretzels. Why there's people love those things because it's salty and it's sweet and it's a little bit of everything. The more you have that, the more opportunity you just have, I think, to get a better tasting product.
You know what? I should have remembered your little formula because we've talked about that before. Because I get it,
because it's basically what you just said, but just a little different.
Yeah. Good. All right. So where are we at now?
Number 4. Yes, number 4.
And my number 4 is that special effects need to be in the background. I love special effects, but ultimately, it's the story that's most important. Alien was a great film, and the creature design in that was amazing. But it's the story that carries that film. John Carpenter's The Thing, the practical effects in that, we've talked about it, and how they don't really hold up, but that's part of the charm of it.
I think they do.
But the story is what carries you through for that. So again, it's I believe the most important part of film, any genre, is the story. And that's where it begins, and how the director and the cast sort of carry that out, and the artists that are part of that. Story. Make sure that that's in the front.
I agree 100%. That's a good one. And that was number 4.
That was number 4. Numero quattro in Italian.
Number Number 4. For me, I think horror films can be good because they're low budget, mid budget, high budget, doesn't matter. But so the visuals can sometimes be in a spectrum. Cinematography can be in a spectrum, but there's one thing that you can't be void of, and that's good sound design. Good, like, sound effects, sort of like the ominous tones and things like that. Take When Evil Lurks again, for instance. The sound effects in that movie, the squelching when they're pulling the guy off the bed, the ominous tones in Halloween. Those are there's a bigger budget and then there's a lower budget, but the sound is such a big part of that. The in Friday the 13th. It's little things like that can really take a low budget indie film and take it to the stratosphere and make it Halloween. If you pull the sound out of Halloween, it's going to lose quite a bit. Half of what makes the shape terrifying is the bum, bum. And so I just think sound is uber important in horror films.
William Friedkin said exactly the same thing in the commentary track for The Exorcist, and talking about how they use sound and how they have loud, and then they follow that by less.
It's almost like a jump scare for your senses.
Yes, when she is getting when Reagan is in the hospital and getting tests, trying to figure out is what's going on with her physiological and brain. That sound, he cranked up the sound really, kind of stuff. And most people don't even pay attention to something like that. Mm-hmm. That's what makes you a potato matcher.
Makes you a potato?
Potato masher.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Where did you get the images for something completely different on the episode with the guy
that took way too long to find. And I had about 17 different clips in there. I had Family Guy's Have You Ever Put Butter on a Pop-Tart song in there. I had Hamster Dance in there, but I just had to find something that was just really stupid and just strange.
We Digest. You have no idea what we're talking about. An insert that he put in the last episode that you can't unsee it.
No, you can't. And there's a lot more that came with it that are even harder to unsee.
Well, tell them what episode that was so you can go back and check it out.
It's this episode. Oh, the episode that it's on is the coffee table episode.
Yeah.
It's some performance art.
The greatest horror film of 2024 that you've never heard of.
Yeah. I got Jonathan to watch it, and he said he had to cut it off.
The coffee table?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, tell him to watch Old Yeller and think of, instead of it, a dog being a baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oopsie.
All right. So where are we at now?
So that was your number. That was my number 4, sound.
Okay.
Did you do one?
I'm doing mine. Well, my number 4, we had a daily double or something. Yeah. Yep. Special effects and background kind of stuff. So now we're
number 4. So you're number 3.
Yes. Okay. And it's my turn to go first. I think that we need to get past all of the tropes that we have in horror movies, things that are just, we see it and we say, oh my goodness, it's the jump scares. I'm not a fan of jump scares, and you jump and then I get mad at myself because it's a cheap scare. The running in the forest and falling down, when there have been parodies of those kind of things that have done that. And anytime you have a clergy or a nun in a movie, they're always evil. We're talking like silver bullet kind of stuff. And I get tired of that. And especially how faith is treated in films anyway. That doesn't help the role of faith. And I'm not saying there are not some crazy nuns and crazy preachers out there, but most of them aren't kind of stuff. And I think we need to be a little bit more, they're lazy, I think. Tropes are lazy. Let's think of new ways to scare people, new ways to bring new tropes into it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's something to be said for like paying homage like Scream does, but they do it in a way where it's respectful and it's still like creative. But you can't just keep hammering home the same thing and think that it's going to be good. For instance, there's a good way and a bad way to do everything. There's a good Saw and a bad Saw. There's a good Final Destination and a bad Final Destination. It's about doing it the right way, not the wrong way.
Yep, I agree.
Good. Number 3. All right. Now, in horror films, especially this is much more prevalent in later horror films when special effects caught up with the ideas. It became this thing where like we have to show everything. We have to show the monster. And I think the best horror films balances what it shows you with what you leave to your imagination.
Yes.
Because the imagination is the most terrifying thing is what you can come up with up here. So when you show me the monster in the first 5 seconds of the film and it's just really not scary, I have a problem with that. Let's talk about Arcadian, the most recent Nicolas Cage film with Jaden Martell in it. Got great reviews. People loved it. I saw it. The first half is great. Soon as you see the monster, I just went from being completely engaged to I don't think I finished the movie. I think I got up and like folded laundry or something strange because you see the monster and it completely takes you out of the world. There's a balance that must be had. And if you can't show me a good monster, why are you showing me a monster?
Right. Well, think Jaws. You know, how long does it take for the shark to show up and all of the issues and problems they had in the mechanical apparatus with that so they show it just enough and people are terrified by it.
It's like when you're writing a script with the we're working on right now. I'm working on with a few people like exposition, right? So if you're having a difficult time explaining an event or describing something, I say throw it out. Why are we spending time working around figuring out how to tell the audience about this specific aspect of something? When you think about it, if you can just remove it and it doesn't change anything, then why did you care? Just get it out of there. It's not necessary. It doesn't matter. It's only going to drag you down.
Yep.
Sorry, it took me way too long to get to that point.
That's okay. They've already left.
I'll edit that part out.
All right. Okay.
But
No, I get you. I
it's the werewolf movie. It's the monster. You have to show it in an effective way.
Yes. Well, like the latest Godzilla movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long? I mean, it really isn't a kaiju film. It's really a war drama, but they bring him in. I guess Godzilla is it Godzilla male, female? I've never lifted the tail up to see.
I didn't lift up his skirt, and I'm not going to ask him either.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 2 for me. I want some social commentary. I think the best horror movies are about something, whether it's like Dawn of the Dead, which is probably my favorite horror movie, right at this time in my life, is about consumerism. You know, if you have Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which was about political paranoia, McCarthyism, communism, is you use horror genre to say something. Mm-hmm. There's an aspect of what do we take away from that? We just thought about this with the coffee table. It's a great best horror movie of this year. What's it say? What's the takeaway? How does this change our lives? How do we see the world? And I think the best horror movies have something that it's commenting on where we are at in our lives.
I agree. That's a good one.
That's why I said it.
That's pretty good for a number 2. It's not as good as my number 2. But I do agree with everything you just said.
Nobody wants to see your number 2.
What about my number 1?
Ding! Oh.
What he says makes a lot of sense. Maybe we'll talk more about it later. I don't know.
You got a point.
Number 2.
Maybe you should wear a hat on
it. Number 2.
On the other hand, a glove.
I don't think he has many more. But number 2 most important thing necessary for a perfect horror film is you need a formidable antagonist. And now I don't mean a bad guy necessarily. It can be a person, a place, a thing, an idea, a concept. But whatever your evil is, your horrific, whatever's causing the horror, it needs to be something that people are scared of, or else you're stupid, right? Like, the birds be the obvious one. Like, birds aren't necessarily scary, but it's done in a way that it's effective.
Yes.
There are horror films that are done in a way that are not effective. So it has to be done in a way that's scarier, because it's literally the reason for the movie being classified as a horror movie and so if that's falling flat on its face, then you have absolutely no hope. I mean, I think it's the most obvious on my list. It's not the most important on my list, but it's the most obvious on my list.
Yep.
Is without The Shape, without Freddy Krueger, without The Thing, you have nothing.
Of all of the antagonists that exist in the horror universe, what do you think the most terrifying one is?
The Thing.
Really?
Because think about it, if they got that here.
Because you wouldn't know who.
Nope. And the only thing that saves that film is that they're in the snow. If The Thing makes its flay, if that sucker landed in Florida, we're not having this conversation. We're all bleeping into whatever those strange things are.
Well, how is that different from like a zombie? Because ultimately,
I can see a zombie coming.
Okay. All right. No, it's good. I never thought
A
of that.
zombie's not self-aware that it's a zombie. It's just this thing.
Well, Bub was in Day of the Dead. He was
Yeah,
self-aware.
but even he
was answering
he
phones
had
and listening
speech
to a
impediment.
Walkman.
You could still see him from a mile away. You can't see the other people a mile away. They talk and do everything human-like.
Okay. All right.
Just saying.
All right.
Number one.
And it's if I had to pick of the 7 things, and if I'm dealing here, and I'm only going to get one, this is the one that I want. And I want horror movies to be surprising and original. Something I've never seen before. Even if it is a sequel, even if it is a rehash, I want it to be surprising. I want to say, wow, I never expected that. When The Exorcist came out, they had never seen anything like it.
It's technically a daily double, but that was my number 7.
Well, that's what I was trying to say when I said surprising. It was not just that, that kind of stuff, but it's the most important thing for me. You look at The Coffee Table that we just watched. I just never seen anything like that. I've never seen characters act like that. When Evil Lurks, which is another film that we saw this year that is just like, wow. It's different. 30 Days of Night. That was it's a vampire movie. How many vampire movies? But it was a new twist. What if you take the vampires and you put them, where it is always dark? So there is no, they go to their coffin during the daytime. It's just new and innovative. And so when you get up, you don't feel like I just saw the same movie I saw a week ago, just with different actors.
Mm-hmm. I agree with everything you just said. However, it's number 7. It's not number 1. You want to know what number 1 is?
I can. I'm afraid.
Well, you just recently said it. Where'd it go? Okay, I just lost my train of thought. No. I want something I want my horror to say something. I want elevated horror.
Oh, it's mine too. Yes, social commentary.
I want it. I think obviously you can have a good horror film that doesn't say something, but when you have a horror film that says something, that's when you're elevating it. That's why this whole elevated horror A24 is my new thing. It's you get your cake and to eat it too. I get the gory, the funny, the scary, but I also get to really dive in and get a something that's, substantial for my stomach to really sink my teeth into. It's not so surface level. You can come back to it. It adds rewatchabilities. Instead of a movie being worth one watch, now you have something that's worth multiple watches. It will lead you further into being a fan of horror films because you're going to watch more horror films. It's sort of like, it's this thing that it will turn into a monster. If you start watching elevated horror and you start really thinking about it, you're going to want to watch more elevated films. You're going to want to look at symbolism and other stuff. You're going to go from horror films to Stanley Kubrick to now more new stuff, and then you're going to go to old films. So it's really going to take you around this whole thing around the block.
I totally agree. And I think it doesn't have to be, you can have a horror movie about being about something elevated, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a serious film. Take Shaun of the Dead, which is a comedy and a zombie film, and how many zombie films? But at its heart, it's a commentary about male friendship. And we have an issue in our culture. I mean, guys, you know, we don't have the kind of, it's like Shawshank Redemption, about hope and the importance of those relationships that we've lost as we become more isolated as a culture. Shaun of the Dead just simply says how nice it is to have buds you can sit on the couch and play video games with, and thick and thin.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
And watchable over and over again, and fresh and exciting.
Says something. Let's see. Of all the things on my list, Shaun of the Dead, does it have all of the above? Well, I guess maybe it doesn't have to not show you a lot because it's a zombie movie, but I would look at everything else on my list and I would say that it absolutely crosses all the checks, marks all.
Yes. So, October is just around the corner, and we're going to be throwing at you 31 different films. Keep score, right? Sit down. Your homework is to watch those 31 films, but also score them on a Likert scale on all 7 of these.
On a what, Kurt, scale?
A Likert scale. It's a strongly agree.
You like Kurt? Who's Kurt?
He's just, gotta love him. As always, we hope you had fun. We interested in what you think makes a great horror film.
Did we leave anything off the list?
That's true. Yes, did we? And we have a whole lot more overlap here than we normally do have in our stuff. Like us, subscribe to us. Tell your mama, your dad, your sons, your daughters, your dog, your cat, and go back and watch all 172 episodes of the Rotten Potatoes.
Is there that many?
I don't know. I just made that up. See
it
how I
seems
do
like
it?
Quite a bit.
It does. Well, you have a lot of shorts that were on there, and October
maybe.
alone had 31.
Maybe.
So, and we're not going to repeat this October. It's totally
all
31
new.
Totally different films, and we guarantee there are going to be movies on there you've never heard of that will light your life up, blow your hair back. So
I couldn't reuse them because then I left the old ones up. You'd be able to go back and see that it's an old one.
Yes. And that would be embarrassing. And we don't ever embarrass ourselves on this show.
No. Never.
So, okay. I guess I need to go change my shirt so we're not the same in the next
I'm going to wear the
episode.
same shirt.
All right.
See you at the
theaters.
movies.
Yeah, baby.
Kill